Great service that we've had so far. It's great to see familiar faces, new faces. Welcome, everyone. If you haven't been here before, actually, what great weather it's been as we've been sharing. It's been great. We had a great barbecue on Friday. If you missed it, I'm sorry. We had a lot of great chicken and meat. Thank you, Ian, for hosting us. Yeah, we had a great time. And yeah, it's just been great weather. And as we continue today, if you haven't been here before, we've been going through the book of John, going through a series through the book of John. And last week, we went through John 17 and just looked at this beautiful prayer of Jesus. And just seeing through that prayer, just the intimate relationship Jesus and the Father had, and how he wants to have an intimate relationship with us and also with one another. And today now we're continuing on in John 18. And the title of my lesson is, My Kingdom is Not of This World. My Kingdom is Not of This World. Because I'm going to be, usually I read out the whole chapter all in one chunk. So I'm not going to do that today. But I thought maybe have a few volunteers to read. Because sometimes I just read it and then I see people falling asleep. So maybe we can just mix it up a bit. I want to read from, the first section is verse 1 to 27. But if we had 3 people read, maybe 1 to 9, then 10 to 18, and then 19 to 27. So 3 people want to read loud and proud. Ellis, Sophie, and then David. David's a powerful reader, by the way. You're going to see. Sorry. All right, do you want to go for it, Ellis? So 1 to 27. You might want to stand up and everyone needs to hear it.
After Jesus said this, he looked toward heaven and prayed.
Oh, sorry, John 18. Sorry, maybe I didn't make that clear. John 18, 1 to 9, yeah.
When he had finished praying, Jesus left with his disciples and crossed the Kidron Valley. On the other side there was a garden, and he and his disciples went into it. Now Jesus, who betrayed him, knew the place, because Jesus had often met there with his disciples. So Judas came to the garden, guiding a detachment of soldiers and some officials from the chief priests and the Pharisees. They were carrying torches, lanterns, and weapons. Jesus, knowing all that was going to happen to him, went out and asked them, "Who is it you want?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "I am he," Jesus said, and Judas the traitor was standing there with them. When Jesus said, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. Again he asked them, "Who is it you want?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they said. Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he. If you were looking for me, then let these men go." This happened so that the words he had spoken would be fulfilled. "I have not lost one of those you gave me." Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. Jesus commanded Peter, "Put your sword away. Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me?" Then the detachment of soldiers with its commander and the Jewish officials arrested Jesus. They bound him and brought him first to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Matthias, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jewish leaders that it would be good if one man died for the people. Simon Peter and another disciple were following Jesus, because this disciple was known to the high priest. He went with Jesus into the high priest's courtyard, but Peter had to wait outside the door. The other disciple, who was known to the high priest, came back, spoke to the servant girl on duty there, and brought Peter in. "You aren't one of this man's disciples too, are you?" she asked Peter. He replied, "I am not." It was cold, and the servants and officials stood around the fire. They had made to keep warm. Peter also was standing with them, warming himself.
Thank you. So we'll have Sophie, if you just read on 19 to 27. David, you'll read the next portion. I'll let you know. Thanks.
Meanwhile, the high priest questioned Jesus about
Oh,
his
yeah.
disciples.
Sorry, go for it.
And his teaching. "I've spoken openly to the world," Jesus replied. "I always taught in the synagogues or at the temple where all the Jews come together. I said nothing in secret. Why question me? Ask those who heard me. Surely they know what I said. When Jesus said this, one of the officials nearby slapped him in the face. Is this the way you answer the high priest? He demanded. If I said something wrong, Jesus replied, testify as to what is wrong. But if I spoke true, why did you strike me? Then Annas sent him down to Caiaphas, the high priest. Meanwhile, Simon Peter was still standing there with himself. So they asked him, you aren't one of his disciples too, are you? He denied it, saying, I am not. One of the high priest's servants, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, challenged him. Didn't I see you in the garden? Again, Peter denied it, and at that moment, a loose of the fell.
Thank you very much. Beautiful reading. Thank you, guys. So we see here in this chapter the beginning of the capture and trial and sentencing of Jesus, and the details that, and this carries on into chapter 19, which we're going to look at next week. And on face value, when I read this the first time, I thought it's just a description of what's happening to Jesus and all the events that are surrounding that, like Peter's denial. But I think as I read it a few times, I saw this kind of theme and concept come through of not of this world. I know last year we had like a retreat based on not of this world, but this kind of theme of not of this world, which Jesus says actually in this chapter, but also he says it in the prayer that we looked at last week, that the disciples were not to be of the world. And not to be of the world. And throughout chapter 18, we see this play out. And as Jesus deals with the betrayal and his arrest and his trial, out of this world verses, and we're going to look at these two competing things, how Jesus dealt with it and how Peter dealt with it, or the Jewish leaders and the Romans, including Pilate, and the crowds. Throughout this chapter, we see kind of a tale of two kingdoms, or kind of two perspectives. There's a great tension that play out in this chapter. And my prayer is that we can examine and evaluate, where do we stand? Do we stand in this world, or do we stand not of this world? And you'll see how that plays out in the chapter. Or even as Jesus said, kingdom of this world, or his kingdom that is not of his world. And these kind of tension points throughout this chapter not only affect the people them, but they affect all of us every day in the decisions that we make. And as I mentioned before, as we just read verse 1 to 27, we see firstly, sorry, hold on, I just need to gather my thoughts. Yes, sorry. So we see starting off that Jesus goes through. Sorry, I've just lost my notes. Yeah. So we're going to see that through the chapter. So in life, we'll all go through situations and circumstances that push us to our limits, that test us or trigger us. Usually how we respond to these situations reveals our real thoughts, our perspective, or our character. There's a saying, I don't know if I made this up or I found it somewhere, but there's a saying that if you squeeze a lemon, you'll get lemon juice. I think some people say lemonade. You'll get lemon juice because that's what's inside. And usually when we're under pressure, what truly comes out is what is inside. When we're under pressure, what comes out is our true character. What we truly think. And usually you can see whether we think of this world or not of this world. So let's see how Jesus responds to this situation in this chapter. We see Jesus' attitude and intention from verse 1 to 3, that he goes into the garden where he usually meets with his disciples. This is like no surprise. He's intentionally gone there. Now, I'm sure Judas, at this point, look how clever I am, I found Jesus, I know where he's going to be. But it wasn't anything to do with Judas. It was because Jesus went there on purpose. Jesus knew they were coming, and then he went there and even goes up to them now and says, who is it you want? I find this amazing. And we have to realize that it says in this verse that Judas was guiding a detachment. Now, a detachment from scholars is between 200 to 2,000 men. So, and they came with torches, lanterns, and weapons. So they came with torches to look for Jesus. They thought they were going to have to go and find him. And they came with weapons ready to fight. Now, imagine you're one of them, like one of these soldiers, getting ready, maybe you had like a little motivational talk before you went, like, we're going to find this Jesus guy. And then the guy that you're looking for just comes up to you and say, who is it you want? I'll be like, what's going on here? I'll be thinking, what is happening? And, even Judas who's leading them, I'll be like, why is this Judas guy made this big deal of this guy? Like, he just came up to us. But Jesus basically walks up to this army and says here, look, I'm the one you're looking for. And I'm sure everyone thought he was crazy, except for him. Usually when people are after you, you go into hiding, you go and find backup, or you just do something to get out of that situation. Now, I remember when I was about 16, I used to go to these I don't know, have you guys heard of Capital Extra Radio? Some of you, yeah? That used to actually be called Choice FM. Many of you, if you're from my generation, you would know that. But they used to hold these big parties, right? And it's like an under-18s party, and I'll be like, yeah, I'm going to go there with my friends and have a good time. But there was one time, and I used to be the main guy organizing it, and I'll get all these tickets for everyone. I'll say, whoever you want to bring. So one of my friends brought one of his friends, and this guy was just like one of those unstable guys. He was like, if anyone looks at me funny, I'm going to start a fight with them. I was like, oh man, why am I with this guy? And I remember we got there, we were having a good time, and then him and this other group of guys, I think they're from South London, obviously like South London. So they're from South London, and they were like, why are you looking at me? And then this whole altercation started kicking off, and then basically, they got kicked out because, I don't know why they got kicked out. I think the security guards saw they were getting aggressive, so they kicked that whole group out. We stayed in. But then my friend's friend was like, I need to go back and get backup. So he went off, and then after the party, these guys were like, we're going to wait for you outside. And I was just like, I couldn't even enjoy the rest of the party. I was just like thinking, what am I going to do? So afterwards, everyone left, and we just stayed in the place. And then we found a security guard and was like, is there a back entrance? And he was like, yes. So we got out the back and then ran off. So they didn't catch us. But, when you're confronted, I just shared that story because when we're confronted by something, we want to run. I mean, I would definitely like running and hiding. But Jesus here actually goes towards the fight, which is very strange and out of the ordinary. And this is a kind of that practical example of what I was saying, that Jesus not living of this world. Usually we'll run, hide, want to defend ourselves. But Jesus not of this world. He confronts it. He hands himself in. He even tells one of his own disciples, we see here Peter trying to fight for him. He even tells him to stop. And it says in verse 11, shall I not drink this cup the Father has given me? So we see here again, this is strange. It's not what we'll usually see. Judas and his detachment thought by them arresting Jesus, it's like by their own power, by their own might, by their own strategy. But however, it wasn't because of that. It's because of Jesus' surrender and relinquished his power that they were able to. The soldiers thought they were in control and victorious. However, really, it was Jesus who was in control and fulfilling the final and the most important victory by going to the cross. And this is this kind of paradox. Seemingly losing, Jesus was seemingly losing, but actually he was actually winning through this victory of surrender for the greater good. Even for me, becoming a Christian, there was this seemingly losing sort of idea that came through my mind. Even when I came to the church, I thought, I could never be a Christian. It's just too boring or it's too restrictive. But when I saw the value of God and his glory, I was like, I do want to become a Christian. But there was this seemingly losing that, I have to lose maybe friends, my reputation. And that's what happened. Like, I lost my identity that people had liked so much, but that had gone. I had to break up with in a relationship, seemingly losing, but actually, even though to everyone else and my friends, it seemed like what's going on with Daniel, actually, I was gaining a lot. And it's this idea that we may seemingly lose, but we're actually winning. And this is what Jesus is demonstrating to us here. But We see Peter, on the other hand, at this point, thinking the same way actually as Judas and the soldiers. Like I said before, he was, when we get put under pressure, we see what comes out is what is revealed, and he fights back. And he's probably thinking, again, we're losing this, Jesus, what are you doing? Why are you revealing yourself to them and getting arrested? We need to put up a fight. This is not the plan, that Jesus is going to get arrested. So, and he kind of puts up this fight. And, for him, maybe he still has that idea, and a lot of the Jews of that time had this idea that, Jesus was the Messiah, this military guy who's going to overthrow the Romans and restore Israel. And maybe that's what he's fighting for. At this point, Peter's eyes and heart are placed in the wrong battle. Just like Judas and the soldiers. They are thinking and acting in line with the world's ways. Power, strength, in numbers, who can control who, who can I use for my benefit, driven by this kind of self-serving heart and mindset. Peter had forgotten about Jesus' mission and purpose, and he acted according to his own version of what he thought it should play out as. Jesus and Peter were at odds, representing like this kingdom of this world and the kingdom of God. Jesus shows us this total opposite of that, this self-sacrifice to benefit the many, this radical selflessness, the giving as opposed to receiving, seemingly losing to gain the ultimate victory, not just using his power out of turn or to abuse people, but to actually benefit other people. And that's the amazing Jesus that we serve today. Another thing we see, not only Peter fighting for Jesus, but he also denied Jesus. I always think, if I was Peter, I'll be like, I'll think of John, like, why did you write this chapter? Like, you just put me in a bad light. Like, why did you actually write this? But, hey, man, we can learn from his mistakes. And you see this Peter denying Jesus as like this sandwich between Jesus being questioned and abused by the high priest and his people. We just saw Peter fighting for Jesus, and it's like this macho act. But now he's kind of being a coward, and he's being scared. He was fighting against soldiers, but now he's being silent and scared of one of the servants who just kind of merely asked him, "Are you one of Jesus' disciples?" He responds, "I am not." And again, I find this contrast interesting between Jesus and Peter. Peter says, "I am not," twice, and Jesus, earlier, when they ask him, "Are you Jesus?" he says, "I am he." Jesus proclaims who he is, and Peter refrains from who he is. And Peter's afraid to stand out, fearing what it will cost him, and chooses selfishness. And in this, paradoxical kind of chapter, I would expect that Jesus is the one to be crumbling under the pressure. But actually, he's there with resolve and confidence about what he is doing and who he is. It is clear to see that Jesus demonstrating at one of the most pressurizing times of his life, kind of these decisions and choices of what it means to make choices that are not of this world, that are different and have like a different perspective on what success and victory is. And it's the same for us today. We need to think about, how do we evaluate our lives and our decisions and our choices? What does our lives mirror more? Is it Peter? Is it Jesus? Is it Judas? I had to ask myself, what comes out when I'm under pressure? Are your decisions based on the world's kingdom of self-promotion and preservation, like Peter we see in this chapter? Or we're trying to fight for Jesus and control things according to our own agenda? Or is it taking the easier or more convenient route of hiding or kind of being this like 007 Christian, just being just hiding? Or is it Jesus' kingdom of being selfless, giving of ourselves? How do we determine that victory or success in our lives? Even as we come here today, Did we come here to give or to get? Are you promoting your kingdom or God's kingdom? Now let's move on and look at this kind of similar concept, but now Jesus, Pilate, and the crowd as we read on. So if Maro, you could read verse 28 to 40.
Then the Jewish leaders took Jesus from Caiaphas to the palace of the Roman governor. By now it was early morning, and to avoid ceremonial impediments, they did not enter the palace, because they wanted to be able to eat Passover. So Pilate came out to them and asked, "What charges are you bringing against this man? If you are not a criminal," they replied, "we would not have handed him over to you." Pilate said, "Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law. But we have no right to execute anyone," they objected. This took place to fulfill what Jesus had said about the kind of death he was going to die. Pilate then went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Is that your own idea," Jesus asked, "or did others talk to you about me?" "Am I a Jew?" Pilate replied. "The Roman people and chief priests handed you over to me. What is it you have done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now, my kingdom is from another place." "You are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of the truth listens to me." "What is truth?" retorted Pilate. With this, he went out again to the Jews gathered there and said, "I find no basis for a charge against him. But since it is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of the Passover, do you want me to release the king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "No, not him. Give to Barabbas." Now Barabbas had taken part and outright.
Thank you, Mara. Amen. So here we start with Pilate, who's a Roman governor. And even from scholars, it's mentioned that he was quite actually mean and kind of a ruthless man. But I sort of feel for him here. I sort of feel like, he's caught up in the middle of this kind of battle between Jewish leaders and Jesus. And, who's meant to be this sort of threat to Rome, or they're kind of saying he's a threat to Rome, in matters that he has no clue about. So he's trying his best to kind of manage the situation here. And Pilate asks Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" I don't know if he was genuinely asking him, or being sarcastic, looking at Jesus and be like, "You're meant to be this king?" But I'm sure it's not the king that he was expecting. You remember, he was the one that would have probably sent this detachment with Judas to go and find him, to find this guy. And then when he sees Jesus, he's probably thinking, is this the Jesus that I sent all these soldiers to get? But then Jesus does what Jesus does, and he starts asking him questions or asking him to clarify, is that from you or is that from what other people have said? And now, then after that, they converse a bit, and after that, then Pilate asks him a more direct question. What have you done? He's trying to get to the bottom of this situation, what is happening here? Jesus, responds probably cryptic to Pilate, but Jesus is explaining the fundamentals of his kingdom to Pilate. And Pilate would have been used to an earthly kingdom, reigning, as I was saying before, reigning with power, reigning with might, with numbers. There's a sense of pride, the love of human praise, desire for domination, self-interest, where the few rule the many. So I could imagine Pilate hearing Jesus saying, I have a kingdom not of this world, and thinking, what kind of kingdom is that? He was probably reassured as well that it wasn't a threat to Rome, because his main role was to kind of keep peace, trying to keep everyone in line. So he would have been like, if he's talking about this thing not of this world, then it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't even have a physical army. But Jesus is showing him, and he's showing us, that his kingdom is a set-apart kingdom. That it's not a geographical location or people conquering their way by force and fear, but one that liberates people by love and and conquers people's sin. A kingdom where all are equal, where all are empowered and equipped under Jesus, not just a few elite. Now, and this is exemplified by Jesus going to the cross, because this was based on love, on this sacrifice, humility, and righteousness. All these things are a part of Jesus' kingdom. Now, in verse 37, Pilate goes back and then asks the question, so you're a king then? Because he's saying he's part of this kingdom. Jesus does not deny that, but he's explained that he's a different type of king. He's a king of truth. Why does Jesus want Pilate to, I was thinking, why does Jesus want Pilate to know this? Maybe he's just trying to help him see what true leadership is about. What true power and authority is about. That it's actually to bring the truth. It's actually to bring freedom. It's to bring love. Again, these are tension points between a worldly kingdom and Jesus' kingdom. Even today, worldly powers can be based on this kind of worldly kingdom. Based on lies, based on cover-ups. Mistakes that are made are brushed under the carpet. Or let's kind of move on to the next topic, or false promises made, abusing power. And unfortunately, sometimes even this worldly way of leading and kingdom can creep into the church. You can have that same destructiveness in the church when maybe leaders abuse their power, or even people we kind of operate out of selfishness. But Pilate leaves this conversation with, the last thing he says is, what is truth? What Pilate failed to see was that the truth was standing right in front of him. For Pilate, soldiers and armies, for Pilate, soldiers and armies were the truth. Rome was truth. Caesar was truth. Political power was truth. But he could not see past this. And also we see in these verses, the crowd that also condemned Jesus, they couldn't see the truth either. And in verse 40, when they're presented with the option of releasing Jesus or Barabbas, who was part of this kind of group aiming to overthrow Rome, they choose Barabbas. Their truth was again looking for this outward revolution to overthrow the Romans, to get their freedom back. But to get their freedom back, they were looking at others of these Romans are holding us back. This idea that someone else or something else is the problem. However, Jesus' truth is this inward revolution. He came to show us that the problem's not out there, but it's actually inside us. To set them free and us free from the real oppressor that is sin. They chose the way that suited them, that was convenient to them. Jesus also alludes to this kind of truth idea in two other scriptures in John, and probably many other. But the two ones that I found is John 14:6, when Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. I know this was preached on a few weeks ago by Chen. And if you haven't, I know there's some new faces, so if you haven't seen it, please go on our YouTube channel and watch it, because he really goes into really great detail on what Jesus being the truth is. And also in John 8:30-32, Jesus says, even as he spoke, many believed in him. To the Jews who had believed in him, Jesus said, if you hold to my teachings, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So there's this whole idea of, I believe that we're all looking for truth here. And if we want to find truth, Jesus is the source. Jesus and his teachings lead us to truth. However, like the crowds, the truth can be hard to, and like Pilate, the truth can be hard to embrace. It's often at a tension with our own worldview and the worldview of the world. Truth has many facets. Truth gives us clarity and certainty, but it also can be painful. It can be painful when we know the truth, but it's also freeing. It exposes, but it gives us confidence. I know for me, I can run away from the truth because I find it painful. Now, even today, Jess asked me to do some stuff during the week. And then she was like, oh, have you done these things? And then I was like, no. But I I wasn't really, the truth was no, but I was like, in my head, I was thinking, does she know how busy I've been? Like, doesn't she, doesn't she see, like, all the other things I'm doing, or is there some other excuses that I made? Or the way she said it, I didn't like it, But I didn't really want to face the truth. I didn't want to be exposed and just be like, I haven't done it. I need to go and do it. I just wanted things to fall in line with my version of the truth, rather than the actual truth. And I know I can do this with Jesus. I can have my own version of Jesus, the one that, fits into my narrative, into my worldview. Often I can be like, okay, I just want to, my kind of tendency can be, I just want to accomplish a lot of things, get things done, they're great outcomes, outcome driven. And I can just look at Jesus in that view. Like, Jesus done all these great things. He was healing people. He was doing this. He was doing that. He was doing that. But actually, I can miss the points of Jesus where he's actually, addressing people's character. Because I can neglect kind of the heart and the character or why I'm doing what I'm doing. And this challenged me as I read it. That am I going to actually embrace the truth of Jesus, the whole truth of Jesus? Think about this for yourself. What is your truth today? What is your truth today? Is your truth based on Jesus? This idea of not being of this world or being part of his kingdom that is not of this world? Or is your truth based on the world and what we see around us, like Pilate and the crowds? Now, I urge us today to go to Jesus, the source of truth, that we can truly find out who we are and who we truly are. And not only go there for ourselves, but also to point other people there also. Point other people to Jesus, who is this truth. I know I need to be careful myself that I don't pollute people's view based on my own opinions of God, but actually show them to the source, bring them to the Bible, show them about Jesus. Show them the truth about God. In conclusion, we have seen this wonderful a chapter about two kind of opposing views of the kingdom of this world and the kingdom not of this world. And, we all need to then think about where do we lie within that. Thank you for listening. Amen.